Hi, this video is just to demonstrate in Eco version 6 how location works, where you normally would have a location with pollution data, precipitation for an international location, and in some cases you may only have a location or other limited data. And this is just to demonstrate creating a project. We'll use New Delhi, India as an example, and talk about some of the limitations and workaround options that you have for that. So before you start that, one of the things I like to do, if you're looking at what locations are available, is go to iTree database. I'm not going to go into great detail because I just want to try to make this rather quick, but underneath tools you'll see iTree database. This is the portal where you would actually enter a new location for New Delhi or any other location you'd be interested in adding. And then you could enter the precipitation data, pollution data. This is where you can actually enter new species too. So this is the location or the portal that you use to create new locations for international locations and then enter the data. And you can see here it can take up to 6 months for that whole process. The help menu here also will walk you through how to use this. So one of the things that you'll notice right here is iTree Eco already supports many locations around the world. Click here for a list. So countries that have been integrated, that are fully, well, what we like to consider fully operational: the US, Canada, Australia, Mexico, most of Europe, and I believe that's about it. So those are the ones that are fully integrated. Those would be up in this drop down, and those would be the countries that you'd mostly see here. So other ones that can be entered just by any individual are entered here. So you can see here's a location for Buenos Aires. Now you see here under pollution year, available pollutants, it's empty. So that indicates that they only have a location, but you're not going to be able to get pollution modeling, and that the precipitation modeling is going to be underestimated or not even estimated depending on what's available in global weather. So Eco uses global weather, and we'll see that when we create a project. And so if we scroll down here, you'll see that a number of locations here, Hong Kong. So somebody submitted all these locations using the iTree database, and then they provided locational information, and then they also provided pollutant information and then rainfall data for 2013. So if we scroll all the way down, we can see there's a number of places that don't have pollutant data or precipitation data. Tbilisi, Georgia, and then here is India. So this is the Dwarka location that somebody submitted. I believe this was a student who was working on a project, but at the time there was a time-sensitive project, a due date that had to be met and could not wait the 6 months, and then also had some difficulty finding the data needed to try to get this populated in time. So that's the thing to consider also, to have this location actually available with the pollution rainfall data updated in Eco, where you can actually use that for analysis work. However, it's very easy to create a location, and I just want to show you what that screen looks like when you go to iTree database. I'll pull a different screen over real quickly, and it's just a form. So when you go, this is again iTree database, and I just had this one ready. So these are mostly drop-down menus that you would have to populate with the information for a location that you wanted to enter here. You can see which is required. So these are the ones that are required, and this is just to give the location information that you need and some other variables, but many of these variables are optional once you get beyond this second panel. So it's using latitude and longitude, elevation. Population is mostly used for pollution modeling, monetary values in the US, and then the area of the location. And then climate region, and you can see here, you're really only able to match up your climate region with somewhere similar in the US based on this drop down. So you have a limited way of defining climate by saying it's most similar to one of these climate regions in the US, and in the help manual there's a little bit more information about picking that. But once you get beyond that, you can see that everything is mostly optional. So if you don't provide a leaf on day and leaf off day year, this is for the growing season, mean temperature, then the people that work with this will use the latitude and longitude and try to populate those as best they can. So if you know this, you can make this much more accurate for that locality that you're interested in adding in here. And then there's some general information about temperature, and it's really not that much that it's asking you. And then it gives you some information, well, what does it mean, warm temperatures? It's the average summer temperature. Is it greater than 25 Celsius? Abundant rain, it'll give you, well, what does it mean by abundant rain? So many of these you can fill out just based on your local knowledge. And then the ozone state, there's a document that will help you select a similar state that you can use in the US. And so there's not too much to this. Generally, with a little bit of time, you can try to find some of this information to populate, and if you don't have it, much of it is not required, and you can still have a location entered and then later come back. And in the lower right here, you can see if you were to do this, then your next step, if you had precipitation or pollution data available, you could go ahead and do that. So that is what it would look like if you only had to enter in a location. So for many of these locations here, like Dwarka, that's probably maybe only a half hour to enter that. It still takes some time before this becomes available in eco, but again, no pollution or precipitation, so we're just going to be using local National Climatic Data Center global weather, and that generally does not have accurate precipitation data. So when you submit precipitation data, it really is just rainfall that is then merged with the global weather. So that's just to give a quick framework of how location is entered, how you can see which new locations are available. This is not OAS as current. We just had an update maybe about 2 weeks ago, and so I know that there are actually 2 new locations in India. So now what I'm going to do is open up Eco version 6 and just kind of walk through the project creation steps where you can see how you navigate the location if we wanted to set up a demonstration project for New Delhi. So this is the launch screen that Eco version 6 leaves you at, and I'm not going to explain these steps in great detail because this is all things that you can find in the manual for setting up a new project. And I'm just going to use complete inventory, and we'll put this on the desktop and give it a project name. So one of the things that you'll see is the project name is somewhat important because this is what will identify the name of the project that you'll see in many of the reports. So whatever you type in here is what you'll see at the top of a lot of the reports. And so think about that, because that's something that's a little bit hard to do. You can change it, but you have to come back and do some editing. So that's what we're going to use, is just call it New Delhi demonstration. We'll say it's a demo. And now I'm going to set up the location. So this is where if you had, say like the United Kingdom, they have all these options in here. In some places that aren't set up, you won't find that. So if we go to India, it's going to be very limited. So this is a new location that somebody set up for Rajamundry. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And so we can see that there is a another location that somebody recently set up for Mumbai. And so you can see that there's population information once I populate that, but there's not a whole lot more beyond that. And then there's National Capital Territory, Southwest Delhi, and this is the Dwarka location. So this is what we have to choose from. This is what's available for locations in India. And the reason why we can use Dwarka is because ECO is going to use this location to allow us to select a weather station. So if we were to say, let's choose Mumbai, and you can see here it's telling you you only have weather. There's no pollution data. So when we hit show map, it's going to bring us to Mumbai to select a local weather station. But it's also going to use growth characteristics for Mumbai. So now Delhi is further north, or New Delhi is further north. So we're probably better off using Dwarka because it's nearby. So you could certainly pick Mumbai, but the characteristics of Mumbai might be different just because it's further south too, and it's coastal. So it might be more of a difference in terms of the climate. Now keep in mind, we're not going to get pollution modeling, and the precipitation modeling is going to be underestimated. So those are going to be of little value. But we will get carbon, and carbon is going to be based on the growing season. So this is why we're going to use Dwarka instead, just because of the proximity to New Delhi. And I'll just have to manually enter population, and we'll say urban, and here. So now it's using Dwarka, even though I call this New Delhi. And then when I ask it to show my map, what you can see that it's doing is I zoom in, the map takes me to Dwarka, but here's New Delhi. So it's really the proximity here. I'm not going to have that much of a difference unless there's a major difference in elevation or some other reason that the growing season would be different, that much different from New Delhi. But that's not going to affect the carbon estimations and the oxygen production, even though there are local differences in pollution. Maybe there are differences in rainfall, but you're not going to see rainfall because we don't have accurate precipitation data. So when we mouse over these and click, you can see here it tells you this is at Indira Gandhi International Airport. And right now there's no precipitation data at all. So this is 0 6-hour and 0 hourly data in the NCDC weather set. So then we can try this other station here. And so this is telling us that it is only 155 milliliters, but there is some rainfall. So at least we'd get some readings here. So we'll go ahead and select this one, and it's actually closer to New Delhi anyway, or central New Delhi here. So that's really something that users make depending on where they're doing their project. Say if we were doing the project in western New Delhi, maybe then if we had good precipitation data, we would then use the Indira Gandhi Airport. So the only option you have available in ECO is to select your weather station. The pollution data, once that is entered into iTree database, that will be specified by the application based on the location. So you do not get to select where your pollution data comes from. You only get to select your weather station. So pollution is hard-coded when it's available based on the location. But you have this option of selecting weather, and in some cases you might have more years weather in the future that you can go in and see, was there a particularly dry month or wet month, or a wet year I should say, that you could then see how the trees interacted in their environment based on different types of seasons. And so then we would just set up what are the variables that we want for data collection. And so we would just click on those things that we are interested in capturing. And I'm just turning on a couple. Again, here, species DBH are our absolute required fields, and then ECO says some of these fields here are highly recommended because these help with ecosystem services. Now, in the case where we don't have pollution modeling and we don't have accurate precipitation data, many of these aren't going to be of great value. So carbon modeling, actually tree height does help a great deal. So that is one variable where we still can get carbon, oxygen production, which is part of sequestration estimate. So tree height, if you wanted to collect that or have that available, that certainly helps. But usually species, tree diameter, and condition, or in eco it's crown health, are somewhat of the minimums. Land use is somewhat easy to collect, so we can do that too. So these are all optional variables, and the side panels, and if you scroll down, there's an explanation of what many of these variables are. In most cases, for a demonstration project, you'd want to keep it somewhat simple, but you could certainly turn on the mapping coordinates. Are very helpful for collecting data. It allows you, if you have good internet connection, to actually GPS or use a tap on a map feature to collect data. So this is, how you would set up a simple project for New Delhi, but using the nearby Dwarka location and understanding that it's not going to impact the ecosystem services that we have available to us. And as I go ahead and move forward through this, you'll see that this is generating this chart telling me all these different reports aren't going to be available because we don't have variables turned on, or we don't have data available. And so at this point here, I could do more project configuration, or I could even just start entering trees and then processing them. So data entry, or I could set this up for data collection to work with crews. There's many different things. Once we have that, using the submit to mobile, I could then submit a data collection form that people could use to collect data, and then submit this back to the project. But that's a lot to get into right now, so we're not going to do that. So I'm going to stop right here real quickly, and then we'll just pop open a project to show you what it looks like when it's processed. Okay, so I closed out the project that I created. This is one that I had made up previously for Dwarka, but then I went back and changed the location and then called the project name New Delhi Simulation. And so you can see here, it's still using Dwarka as a location because that's all we had available, weather only, and these were just some of the data variables that I had in here that I set up. This is the same project that you'll have available in the Dropbox that I'll update shortly. And so I set up this project to just be a simulation of data collected at 2 schools. Again, here, this is fictitious data that I just used, that I had on hand, and then populate it just for demonstration purposes here. So here's the actual tree data now. And so this is what this looks like once it's populated in here. Several ways to, again, you can manually enter here, or you can use what we call the mobile data collection form. And this looks like a lot, but there's mostly just because there's a lot of DBH options for collecting multi-stems. So here is our crown dieback, here is our height, and here is Latin long, which we use to collect the locations of those trees. And then here are just the tree species, and then we just call this park. I could have used institution also. And here is the diameter of those trees. So if you have actual tree data, then you can make up your own project, and that's more meaningful because it's a true demonstration of actual trees in a park, in a school, or some other site. So we can also now look at some of the reports. And as I mentioned, this is an automated written report that ECO generates just to summarize the project, and you can see here is where the project name gets embedded into the main report that you see here. And so these can be exported out and saved in different formats, and you can manually update these too. And it just gives you a summary, 20 trees. We can see the most common species here. You can change between common name, scientific name, and this is a very small population. So here, pollution removal, 0. We don't get any pollution removal. Carbon storage, carbon sequestration, yes, we will get that because that'll be based on locations, Dwarka, and then also other characteristics related to the tree species. And then oxygen, so here's our avoided runoff, which is going to be underestimated. And so we can see if we go to the individual tree reports, you then can see, well, let's see here, pollution removal, 0. So again, not of value to us because we don't have pollution information. And if we were to look at the hydrology effects, so we can see this is showing us several different types of hydrology effects, but again, it's only using a limited amount of rainfall data because that station didn't really have accurate representation, which I think is more like 700 millimeters, I believe, of rain is more typical for New Delhi from what I recall. So that can be updated, but you still get an enormous amount of all the structural reports. And so this is, to me, of value in understanding the trees, understanding which are the trees that are providing the most leaf surface area, understanding which are the trees that are mature, which are, might be dying out. Are you planting new trees? So these are just different types of reports. There are things, species importance. This is based on the percentage of leaf area and percentage of population. Leaf area provides a lot of benefits, and so it's a relative percentage, and that is used to calculate which are the most important trees in ECO's terms, which are those that are generally a combination of abundance and leaf area that are providing the most benefits. So even though we can't calculate or estimate pollution and estimate accurate rainfall, we still have a lot of information that provides value for us just to understand the structural value of the resource and some limited value in terms of the ecosystem services that trees are providing. So this will just give you something in hand that you can use to then demonstrate to other local folks who might be interested, other NGOs. This is what we can do today, and we have the potential of improving going forward. So this is a limited snapshot, but I'll end it at here just to try to keep this quick.